What is the temperature range for spraying?
The temperature range to spray 3M EW5000 primer should be 70 to 95 degrees Fahrenheit or 21 to 35 degrees C. If your application requires a temperature that is outside of this range, please contact your sales rep. He or she will put you in contact with 3M Technical Services to discuss the specific needs of your application and how to adjust the spray application.
What would happen if the booth temperature were too low?
At low temperatures, a potential defect in the appearance, microcracking, may occur. Reducing the amount of primer put on each pass and letting it air dry for a longer time, about 60 minutes, should alleviate the microcracking.
Can 3M EW5000 primer be sprayed in high humidity conditions?
Yes, you can still spray 3M EW5000 primer in high humidity conditions, although the water evaporation rate will be greatly reduced and you will experience a longer flash time. High humidity can adversely affect the final performance of some solvent-borne primers. 3M EW5000 primer, however, is a waterborne primer and humidity does not affect its final performance. However, you will have to spray slower compared to spraying in lower humidity conditions. Increasing the spray booth air draft rate or spray booth temperature will help to dry out the primed surface faster.
Why is metal surface preparation so important to primer performance?
Like any epoxy-based primer, the curing process of 3M EW5000 primer can be affected by its pH value. 3M EW5000 primer has been formulated to the pH value that will provide the optimal cure and therefore performance of the primer. If the metal surface has too much residual acid due to an insufficient final rinse, the primer pH value can be affected and will not cure properly. For this reason, one should make sure the final rinse is thorough, at least 10 minutes, as specified in most metal processing standards.
Why might 3M EW5000 primed parts fail MEK resistance testing?
3M EW5000 primer typically has very good MEK resistance down to 0.13 mils or 3.5 micron. However, undercuring the primer can be one reason for a low MEK resistance. Make sure the oven temperature is calibrated and that the primed part has seen the full cure cycle. Another possible cause of MEK resistance failure can be from a lack of thorough rinse during the etching and anodizing process. The residual acid on the metal surface can alter the epoxy cure and result in an incomplete cure.
Why might 3M EW5000 primed panels fail peel testing?
3M EW5000 primer yields high climbing drum peel values with primer thicknesses up to 0.4 mil or 10 micron. However, in some cases, you may experience failures in peel tests. The cause of peel failures can be different. For example, if the failure mode of the peel specimen is between the primer and the metal substrate, it usually indicates a problem with the metal surface preparation. Some common problems include not thoroughly rinsing the panels, poor electrical connections during anodizing, and aging tank solutions. If the failure mode is between the primer and the adhesive, typically there is a problem with the cure of the primer or the age of the adhesive. Sometimes altering the primer bake cycle can increase the peel values. If the failure mode of the peel specimen is within the adhesive layer, typically the adhesive should be investigated.
Can 3M EW5000 primer be used with 350F or 177C curing film adhesives?
Yes, 3M EW5000 primer can be used with 350 Fahrenheit or 177 Celsius curing adhesives. The bake cycle is flexible for these applications. For example, 3M EW5000 primer can be baked at 315 degrees Fahrenheit, 157 Celsius, for 30 minutes, or 260 degrees Fahrenheit, 126 Celsius, for 60 minutes, as well as temperatures in between. For some film adhesives, such as 3M Scotch-Weld Structural Adhesive Film AF555, a bake condition of 180 degrees Fahrenheit, or 82 degrees Celsius, for 30 minutes will yield the optimal bond performance.
Can 3M EW5000 primer be co-cured with film adhesives?
Due to its non-tacky surface and pre-bake film integrity, 3M EW5000 primer can be co-cured with film adhesives. However, since the primer is not fully bonded to the metal substrate prior to cure, the layup process has to be very careful. Repositioning of the adhesive film may cause delamination of the primer from the part.
Can 3M EW5000 primer be brush applied?
Yes, 3M EW5000 primer has appropriate viscosity to allow for brush application. Care should be taken to ensure uniform application and proper primer thickness, as with all primers.
Can 3M EW5000 primer be sprayed with airless spray equipment?
Yes, 3M EW5000 primer can be sprayed with airless as well as air-assisted spray equipment.